Live look right now, Capitol Hill. Dark clouds there. We have been talking about weather. That is one of the top stories, by the way. You can barely see it there, but I believe rain's coming down in that area. A lot of people talking about the cold snap as well. We'll keep you posted on this. This is somewhat of the same storyline, just more extreme versions in different parts depending on where you go, including Nebraska. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But we bring this up because the Senate right now in a battle to pass that massive $1.7 trillion spending bill ahead of the Friday government shutdown. One measure included, and there's a lot in there, but one measure in it is a TikTok ban on all U.S. government devices. Our next guest was one of the first state leaders to ban TikTok on state government devices back in 2020. That is Pete Ricketts. He's the governor of Nebraska. Governor, always good to see you. Thank you for coming back on the National Report.
Great. Thank you very much for having me on.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you about this. So this is something that you've been passionate about. You felt this should be a focus in your state some years ago. Now it's coming on a federal level here. Do you support a ban on TikTok, a ban on all U.S. government devices? And talk to me about the pushback maybe you received when you tried to do the similar thing or push that through there in Nebraska. How was that received?
Yeah, absolutely. So support doing the ban on federal devices. It's absolutely important. The FBI Director Christopher Wray has said that not only has China got the largest world's hacking organization and trying to steal intellectual property from our government and our companies, but specifically he said he had national security concerns about TikTok. We banned TikTok on state devices back in August of 2020 because of our concern about the CCP and what they were doing to collect data on our citizens and specifically on our state devices, how they'd be able to control data, the software. I mean, the Chinese Communist Party is a threat to the United States, and we need to take it seriously. And one of the things that we can do is to prevent them from collecting data on us. And so this is just a common sense measure to ban TikTok. TikTok is, obligated legally to give that information to the CCP. And so we ought to take that threat seriously.
And again, if this passes, that is one of the measures in that omnibus spending bill. So we'll continue to follow that. By the way, 4,100 pages, a lot to go through, but in there is TikTok for government devices. I want to get to your future, sir, if I can, your plans in politics. I know you announced plans to seek the Senate seat currently held by Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse, who is going to step down January 8th. This is all according to the Nebraska Examiner, and Axios obviously put out the headline. So my question, Governor, why the Senate? And what do you hope to accomplish if you do become the state's next senator?
Well, being governor of Nebraska has just been the honor of a lifetime. It's the best job in the world. I've loved serving the people in Nebraska, and I'd love to find a way to continue to do that. And so I've put my application in to be the next senator. And it'll obviously be up to the next governor to decide. Senator Sasse isn't resigning officially until January 8th. That's after the expiration of my term. So the next governor will make that decision. But I would really appreciate the opportunity to be able to continue to serve the people of Nebraska. I think there's a lot we can do to continue to grow our state.
Any presidential aspirations? We had Governor Asa Hutchinson on the show in Arkansas. He announced his. Do you have presidential aspirations of your own?
Well, I think I'm going to start with just see if I can make the case to the next governor that I ought to be the next senator.
All right. We'll leave it right there. Fair enough. I wanted to pivot, if I can, to the emergency phase of the pandemic. That's something that you talked about. You and more than 24 other governors calling on President Biden to end the federal public health emergency. Part of the letter that we could show the viewers here reads, quote, "While the virus will be with us for some time, the emergency phase of the pandemic is behind us. It is time we move on from the pandemic and get back to life as normal," end quote. Governor, have you or any of the other governors a part of that letter heard back from the Biden administration? And what specifically do you want to see be pulled back as part of this public health emergency?
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to have the president end the emergency. In fact, the president himself on 60 Minutes said the pandemic's over. And, the thing about the COVID-19 virus is it is a virus. It's going to be around with us forever. So we just have to learn to manage it. We ended our state of emergency here in Nebraska in June of 2021. And it's time for the federal government to really, quit creating this culture or this atmosphere of fear around the pandemic. We just have to manage the virus. And it has all sorts of fiscal impacts on our country. For example, we're all getting an enhanced amount of money from the federal government, which means the federal government is continuing to spend more money than we're taking in, running up the debt. If we can end this emergency, we can go back to more normal operations and stop spending so much money that it's just going to be a burden for our grandkids down the road. It'll also allow us to review what we're doing with regard to who should be on Medicaid. Right now, we're not allowed as states to go back and review the files to see if people actually deserve to be on Medicaid right now. So potentially, we've got thousands or even more, tens of thousands maybe, of people who aren't supposed to be on Medicaid but are still receiving benefits, and that disadvantages the people who truly need those benefits. So there's a lot of good reasons why we need to end the emergency here, and that's why myself and 24 other governors called on the president to end this emergency.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation when you take into account of Title 42, the public health emergency still in effect, but you want to pull out Title 42, which has to do with the public health emergency. Hard to make sense of that.
Well, it's a completely hypocritical stance, isn't it? He wants to keep the public health emergency in this country, but then end Title 42, which is part of our migrant protection protocols to keep people who are potentially have COVID from coming to this country. It's like, Mr. President, which is it? Do we have an emergency or don't we? You can't have it both ways. And we think that at this point, it's just time to end the emergency here. Of course, the president still has to take steps to protect our border. President Trump brought illegal crossings to a 40-year low, and we need this president to take seriously his obligations to protect our southern border as well.
Governor, final thoughts. I wanted to get to the weather. This is a major story. It's not a local story. It's a major story throughout the nation right now. And I know, but your state, they're facing extreme cold conditions. This is a live shot, I believe. This is Lincoln, Nebraska. The Falcon camera docked high above Nebraska's capital, courtesy of Nebraska Wildlife Conservation Fund. Your state, though, as you well know, facing blizzard conditions, extreme cold. It's clearly been pummeled. I mean, you could see the snow just blanketing this region. What is your message to your residents there in Nebraska today?
Well, the extreme cold temperatures, I think the high today is going to be around -10 or -13 or -12, something like that. And we've got blowing winds from the north-northwest coming in at like 28 miles an hour. Really makes it hazardous. You can get frostbite in less than 10 minutes. So we're encouraging people that if you don't have to travel, don't travel today. If you have to travel, make sure you take precautions like having food, water, blankets in your car, making sure people know where you're going, slow down, buckle up, those sort of things. But really, the best thing is if you can avoid going outside today, that's the best thing right now, is because it's going to be really dangerously cold.
That's the message, and take it seriously. We appreciate that. Governor Pete Ricketts coming on. Merry Christmas to you. It's great to see you, Governor. Appreciate that.